There's something called consumer surplus, and first of all, I should draw this diagram where we have quantity on the horizontal axis and price on this axis, and then we have our supply and demand curves. Now, what does the market equilibrium do, which is the crossing of supply and demand curve? Well, it determines the price for the market. It determines the price where very probably the product is going to be sold. That's basically, it could have been sold at this price or at this price, but this is where the supply meets the demand curve, and therefore, for everybody, it's going to be sold at this price. Okay. Now, how does this going to work out when we have people, because there's this demand thing, there's this demand thing, and actually in this case we will not even need the supply curve, we just draw the supply curve for the sake to find the market equilibrium, which I located right here. And you actually see, by the way, the supply and demand curve I draw as lines just to make things simple. Now, also take this as a line, as a straight line. Now, we will actually not need supply curve in this one. For the consumer surplus, we just need to see and look at the demand curve. And as long as we know the price where the thing is actually going to be sold, which we got from the market equilibrium, for which we use the supply curve, we will just be okay with the demand curve and with the price. And so when we take a certain price and I took the price of the market equilibrium, we can create like a line here, and we can see that this is basically the price, let me say $10, okay? Price in dollars, quantity in units. And so the quantity and the market equilibrium, for example, will be, it doesn't matter, it's not really important, but let me say 5. And here I will do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like this, okay? So the demand curve, and maybe I should get rid of the supply curve just to not confuse it now. It's not really required for this one. At the end of the day, we will get rid of it. When we look at the demand curve, we see, for example, at quantity 1, the price that would be demanded if only 1 unit was sold would be all the way somewhere here. That would be like $25, right? So $25 would be if only 1 unit was sold. If 2, then the price for which it would be demanded, it means the people who buy it would be willing to pay if there was just 2 units being sold, which would be far above the price that the supply wants for that quantity. Then it will still be very high. It will be like 20, right? If it was 2 units, if only 3 units were sold, and you still see we're left of the actual price that we chose, left of the equilibrium that we had before when we had the supply curve still. At 3 units, we will still be, like at, let me say, $17. So if only 3 units got sold, the price would be $17. But then as we get to 5 units, then we see we're at the equilibrium and the price is $10. And that means that the first person, if there was just one person buying it, if just 1 unit was sold, one person would buy it, and that person would buy for 25. If 2 units were sold, 2 different people would buy for 20. If three different people would, probably the 2 before would be willing to buy for all the way to 25, the second one all the way to that 20, and the third one would be willing to pay all the way to the 17. And so we see that everybody who is left of the equilibrium, was gonna be paid, or was able, would be even willing to pay more than what the price was at the end of the day said to be. Okay, so the price at the end of the day was said to be according to the equilibrium, which you will see for some reason it actually is required because of the other extreme, where there's people who actually would pay less for it. And that's a thing for that's a video, very interesting and similar concept, but for a different one. And so we see the price was set at 10, and all people left of this, all the possible quantities demanded left of the equilibrium were actually above in price. They would be at the same quantities, but they would give us higher prices. So, these people were gonna buy so much. But the price was just happens to be set at just 10, which is far below what they were gonna pay. And so it's set for 10. It's set for 10. And so it means that what they're gonna actually pay is just this. It's just this rectangle, okay? This is what they're gonna be paid. This is gonna be the quantity times the price. And we set the price at 10, so you're gonna pay 10 times 5. And it's still in the limits of demand. It's actually what the people will still want, okay? But we see for each of the lesser amount of units, there was a very high price, and so they were gonna even pay all this stuff actually, okay? They were always gonna pay all this stuff, all the people left of the equilibrium. And so the idea is consumer surplus. Consumer surplus is all the price that they were willing to buy, for. But at the end, they happen to be given a price far below what they were gonna pay. And so all this possible money that they would have had to spend, they would have to spend if the price was not set below themselves, their own opinions, is actually eliminated. So they save all this money. They save all this money. They save all the money that's above the price line and below the demand curve, which basically shows their demand, even at these small quantities and high prices. Okay, so we see that all this, and I'm gonna maybe just shade in the consumer surplus now. All this area signifies the money that they were willing to pay, but the price happened to be lower than what some of them, especially left of the equilibrium, were going to pay. And so all this money that they would be able to pay, and they would pay, is not required from them, because the price is same for everybody, of course, at the end of the day. So they're not like, the producers are going to be like, well, you were going to pay a lot, so you're going to pay a lot, and then those who don't want to pay, they're going to pay less. No, everybody's going to pay the same, so the ones who were going to pay more will pay less than they would have. But the people, on the other hand, that they were going to pay less, they will have to make up for it. So, but that's an idea for the next one. I'm hitting that. And so here you see the consumer surplus is the money that they were willing to pay, but they will not need because price is set below what their expectation was. And how can we calculate the consumer surplus? Like the total surplus, all the money that the consumers saved, kind of, from their own willingness to pay more. Well, that is just the area below the demand curve and above the price, bounded by the y-axis by the price, and right here, so it's this triangle, okay? Bounded by the price axis, by the end of the graph where it just ends, by the price, by the actual unified price, and by the demand curve. Demand curve might have been more curved, and so graphical solution would be maybe the only quick thing. But if you want to enumerate it, especially now that we're given a line here, let's take this as a line, then this is just a triangle, right? So if you calculate the area of this triangle, it's going to be 1/2 times 0 to 5, so times 5 times 10 to 25 times 15. So it's going to be like 75 over 2, 7.5, I think. Yeah. So, yeah, it's 2.55. So, 2.5 times 15, which is 30 plus 7.5. Yeah, it's right. So the area right here of this triangle is 37.5, and so the money, and it's going to be dollars. The surplus, the consumer surplus. So basically, the consumers' potential money that they would have spent, but they didn't have to because the price was set below their expectation, is going to be $37.5. And that's the idea of consumer surplus. Try it with different graphs, try it with different cases. Try to practice it, and you maybe understand it more and more deeply.